We're live. Welcome in, everybody. It's the Real Spiel live show with yours truly, Roman Kelly, and of course, Trevor Kelsey. Trevor, it has been a minute since we've been on. I'm hoping that I sound good. I'm hoping that our live chat immediately lets me know. I've got the headphones situation set up to where I can hear you and I can hear myself, but you can hear me, so everything should be all good. Trevor, how are you doing?
A minute? Roman, I feel like I haven't talked to you all fucking year.
Yeah, we haven't talked all year. We've only texted. We've
only
texted this year.
I've talked to you since last year. It's been that long.
Yeah, it has. That's my fault. It's my fault. It's fully my fault, Trevor. You have been ready to go.
That's my dad.
I've flaked a couple times. I've overslept a couple times, and then work got crazy, and then
got late a lot of times.
I got sick and things of that nature, and I never get sick, which is just whatever. But there's been a lot of action that we've watched on the television, and I've gotten to see a little in person as well. Since we've last spoken, there's been a lot of NFL action going on. There's been a lot of more solidified opinions about who's doing what in the NFL. I don't know how much you're watching NBA lately, but NBA is pretty much it's at its peak in terms of skilled basketball, and it's at its lowest in terms of how much people care about that. And it's really a weird thing. I haven't done enough of my own gathering of thoughts on that to really address it, so I shouldn't have brought it up. But there's a lot of fun things going on the TV right now. There's a lot of fun UofL emotions, a lot of fun UofL athletics on the basketball side that are going extremely positive for us. Feelings that we haven't felt in years. Trevor, feelings that you probably can pinpoint more accurately since the last time you felt based on the details of what we're seeing right now. Talk to me. How are you feeling? Just give me an overall gist of where your head's at with, let's start with Louisville athletics and more specifically Louisville basketball. I want to get into what you think about the Monroe Mills and the football and the transfer portal and your opinions on that right now, because I know you're in tune with Jeff Brom and what he's doing and how they do it. And I just want to, let you break that down a little bit as well. But we're going to start with UofL basketball. We're going to start with this 5-game win streak. We're going to start with Pat Kelsey. We're going to start with this background that you see here, this Yum Center, and how it looking like we can perform anywhere now, on the road or at home. Trevor, talk to me.
Well, you were close. The word to describe my feelings for the last 5 games of UofL basketball in the state of the program right now isn't just, it's jizz, because that's pretty much what I've been doing in my own pants for the last few weeks. And I haven't even had to use either hand, which is amazing. It's like the first time since I was your age I haven't had to do that.
TV's doing it for you, huh?
I'm just sitting here hands free, like it's still coming. It's still coming. Well, clean up is a bitch, but other than that, it's been great. To rewind real quick before I get into a little basketball, because I do want to get to it. And I won't get into the rant of it, but I would agree and disagree with your NBA assessment. One, it is at its lowest ratings, but it is also at lowest at skill level too, because there are little of it out there. But that we'll say that for a different. That was more for a Kenny Payne era argument and debate to kill time during basketball season. Because right now we actually have good basketball at UofL to talk about that is at its peak in terms of skill level and at a peak in terms of being watched. People showing up. I guess you were at one of the games. I can assume by your description. I didn't know that. I guess my GPS went off on my tracking of you, but nonetheless, since we've talked, I mean, the Louisville. I haven't been this giddy. I mean, dare I say giddy in a while. I mean, I know obviously I'd say pre-pandemic. I mean, going into that tournament, thinking that team with that senior leadership and Warren Company and Mac was coaching so well at that point, that team was just primed to be like a 3 or 4 seed maybe. That's where I'm at, and that's been almost 5 years now since we've been at that point and been so excited. That I look at it and it just, I don't look at it going optimistically hoping that something's going to happen and something's going to get better. I've been watching over the last month and I've seen that optimism come to truth, and that mainly being in guys like James Scott, who's been playing so much better the last 5 games. I've heard you and Mike talk about it on his show or on your show, depending on the podcast link. Sometimes it's a co-host, sometimes it's a solo show. I don't know what to know how that determines the tweet, but that's between you all. But I know you all talked about his offensive efficiencies or deficiencies, excuse me, going into this last 4 or 5 games. That wasn't my concern. My concern's always been his defense. And defensively over the last 4 or 5 games, he has improved each and every game to the point where now, like, Louisville's one lack of issue on defense, particularly, other than kind of being worn down near the end of games, was rim protecting. And Scott has been able to do that. He's been falling asleep a lot less on the backdoor cuts, which was killing us in the early part of the season and killing him. It's made up, obviously. He's taken up a lot of the things that we lost with Kason prior. Like a lot of the little things that he would do using his length to make up for, guys cutting the basket, using his length to make up for weak side shot blocking and rebounding. He's doing a lot of those little things, and you combine that with the addition, which I'd be honest, I did not see Troy bringing this much to the table right away. I mean, we saw what he did a little bit in those exhibition games. We take that with a grain of salt. He didn't do very little to say nothing against Tennessee, and then he was out. And I had no idea he was going to come out with this kind of energy, enabling Louisville to play him at center in a lot of positions because of the size issues we had with our depth losing prior. Using him and Hadley at the power forward center position, which college basketball you can do for stretches now, especially with their athletic ability and the way Hadley and he play. Everything is hunky dory right now. If that's still a phrase used by kids or any adults anyway.
What?
Everything is hunky dory. It's 2 scoops of ice cream and covered with sprinkles, Dr. Pepper, and caramel. I mean, it is beautiful right now. And yeah, I mean, now you're going on the road against Pittsburgh, a game that I feel very confident about, not just because I watched Pittsburgh against Duke, but I don't think Pitt is anywhere heads or tails better than us. They are, if anything, right below us or at our level. And that's the scenario. And the way I've watched Pat Kelsey help develop this team and get better over the weeks and over the days. I mean, yeah, I don't know. There are a few things that if you're a Louisville fan right now in basketball that you have like a complaint about. Maybe it's the scheduling of how it worked and the timing of having Ole Miss and Duke and that 3.
Noah Waterman's fouling.
Yeah, I mean, that Edwards' offense has been very struggling. So is Hepburn's. Thankfully, Hadley was able to pick it up for us, obviously, in the Clemson game. Scott helped on that. Rain Smith.
Okay. Talk to me for a second, Trevor. I want to break down these last 3 games in the sense. So you've been saying you've watched Pat Kelsey get this team together. You've watched him work out the kinks, work out the issues, learn what rotations and stuff he clearly likes, who needs to play with who. He's found ways to get Chucky that rest. Abubakar Traore Cater coming back has helped immensely, obviously, with those dead legs at the end of games. But talk to me in terms of North Carolina on the 1st, Virginia 3 days after that on the 4th, and then Clemson on the 7th, 3 days after that. Knowing that we're 8 guys deep, let's go North Carolina. You went into that game feeling like we would win that? Yeah,
very confident. That felt like a kind of an emotional game where you're at home. That was a Saturday, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. You're going to have a good crowd.
It was a Wednesday.
That was the Wednesday game? I couldn't remember.
Yeah, the Virginia was Saturday, but
you're right. But it was still, even though we had, you were going to have a good crowd. It's going to be a home game. North Carolina coming. I just felt like it was the kind of game this team needed that kind of win. Whether North Carolina is North Carolina is.
I haven't beat them since 2020.
I mean, you needed a big win. You needed that kind of name win after losing to Duke and Ole Miss and falling short against Oklahoma. Louisville kind of at that point right now, at that point in the season, they've surpassed it since. But at that point, I think they needed that name win. And North Carolina was that name still, whether you're better than them or not. And I was very confident in that game. I thought Chucky did a great job with R.G. Davis. I thought Louisville was just as good as North Carolina. I mean, on paper or on the court, they're just as good.
Yeah. Chucky was huge in that game on both sides of the ball.
And I was very confident against Virginia because Virginia's not a good team. I mean,
they're not. I was confident against Virginia as well. Very confident.
It's great to go in there and win, and it's good to get that monkey off our back. The last time was 1991. I guess they said you weren't born. You weren't even a thought in Daddy's eye. I mean, I remember that 91 season a little bit. I remember that team. That would have been the team that lost to Ball State when Felton Spencer missed a layup late in the game, and Ball State would go on to almost
beat. Shout out to Felton Spencer. He was a substitute teacher of mine for some years.
I got to meet him, do some radio with him years back. Good, really nice guy. RIP to him, obviously. And Of course, that Ball State team coached by Rick Majerus would go on and almost lose to almost beat UNLV in the Sweet 16. The only team that year in the 1990 tournament to come within 20 points of UNLV. But Louisville almost had them beat. They probably beat the shit out of Louisville if we played them. But Louisville fell short against Ball State that year, that team. But I remiss. Virginia was not a good team, but it was good to go in there and do what you had to do, and that's a step forward. That's one of those steps you do is you start beating the teams you're supposed to beat the way you're supposed to beat them, and that's something Louisville was doing going step forward. Now, obviously, EKU was somewhat of a. I know since we've been on here, EKU was kind of a scare a little bit with that close game. I think that was more of a Louisville playing down to its competition a little bit, and we see them do that. We also with UTEP as well.
Can't keep that up,
and you can't do that too much. But listen, you don't have that kind of competition anymore the rest of the way. I mean, right now, your EKUs are basically Virginia, and you saw what they did to Virginia at Virginia. So I was And on top of
you've got a bad Miami team that you should not lose to at home.
No, I mean, these are teams. Now on the road, anything can happen. Anything can happen on the road, so you got to be wary of that.
But ACC is not. You shouldn't be losing to Syracuse on the road.
You shouldn't. You can't take
SMU. SMU is good. SMU games. That's a good team. But this ACC. You should not lose to Georgia Tech on the road. I get it though. Those are games that you wouldn't if it came down to a close game and we're not knocking the 3-ball down and. They got somebody who's hot at the end of a game, then obviously you never know what can happen on the road. You're right.
You can't just look at Georgia Tech and Syracuse. Yes, aren't tournament teams, and nor is Virginia. But you can't look at them and say, we're just going to walk over them because we're better than them. We are probably better than them, but not to the point where you need to overlook it. And I'm assuming Pat Kelsey has the same mindset I do.
No, definitely. Good. He's shown he's got that every single game is a tournament level importance game to him. So,
but I mean, beating Clemson, and I think Clemson's a good team. I don't know if they're. I mean,
it wasn't a quad. It was a quad 2 opportunity, but it's definitely a good team.
I look at Clemson. Clemson's a solid team and a tournament team, obviously. A good win for the win. But the best part about the win was not just what Hadley did, which is funny. I was talking to Rutherford right before the game, and I don't know why. I was just like, Dwan Hadley reminds me of Ace Custis a little bit, and I don't know if that name rings a bell to you. He might be a little before your time, but he's a big, 6'7", 220, average guy would get you 18 and 12, and played at Virginia Tech, and kind of a brute player, and did all those little things that Hadley does. And of course, I send that, and ironically, Hadley goes ham and does better than Ace Custis maybe ever did. But the best part about the Clemson game was not just Hadley and the way he performed, and James Scott performed, but the fact you do that with your 3 relatively best players, particularly offensively, and Chucky and Terrence and Rain. They go like 4 for 31. I mean, I think didn't they combine from the field? I want to
say something like that. Yeah.
20, I mean, awful. I mean, and Chuck, as I said, Chucky and Terrence, the last 2 games have played not great offensively. Chucky makes up for it by getting to the line is what he can do, and Terrence has not been able to do that like he did at James Madison. I think he's still offensively. We see that in stretches where he's adjusting to, what he could do at James Madison at that level. And there's no respect to the Sun Belt, but what he could do at that level, he could get to the line. He's more athletic than almost majority of people he was playing against, and now he's playing against guys that are his athletic ability. And I think we've seen that over this season. Him trying to adjust and get to where he can get to the line. He hasn't been able to do that, but he's made up for it tremendously with both ball handling, making up for when Chucky has to take a break with Johnson being out, and particularly on defense. His defense in the Clemson game was great, and Chucky obviously has made up for him. Makes up for any offense that he ever has defense. But offensively, he's been struggling too, and I think you see it now. Like I had a buddy text me the other day, and he goes, "How the?" And I guess I can cuss because he does. He's like, "How the fuck is Chucky not in the league already? I've heard you say you think he's an NBA guy." I said, "He's just." Offensively, he can't hold it right now. I mean, we saw it. A great point was, he missed the 2 wide open threes against Clemson after Hadley offensive rebounds.
Did you hear that?
Not there. And I think he play in the NBA. Don't get me wrong, but he just has to get a little more consistency with that outside shot. If Louisville's going,
and his size, it's a requirement. It's not even. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. If he wants to play at the next level, he's got to be a 38-40% kind of guy for sure.
Yeah, his defense is on a roster. I promise you that. Money right now is his defense gets him on a roster.
I think it gets him on a summer league roster. Definitely, for sure. He definitely is going to be playing in the summer league next year, I believe. Chucky Hepburn should be.
Oh,
If he's playing overseas in December, though, don't be surprised.
No, but once somebody gets him on an NBA roster and he can show what he can add defensively, whether how much of an offensive efficiency he does lack, I think he's gonna stay on that team. And I
think, he's got to get into the right summer league situation. But if he gets into the right summer league situation, he can make it to the NBA or the G League. Or I think if he gets into the right summer league situation, he'll make it to a G League team for a full year's roster type of a situation. He'll get a guaranteed G League spot. I just think that nobody in the NBA trusts anybody at that size anymore. It's
no, isn't he?
They say, yeah, he is, but he's not. He can't shoot like Trae Young. He can't, he's not shooting like Trae Young, and he's not. Is he really defending and above the rim like a player like a Gary Payton II? Gary Payton II can't shoot. He can't really pass. He's not a playmaker in the pick and roll either. But he's above the rim. He's a lob threat at 6'3", 6'4", 6'2", 6'3", I think. And he's a cutthroat defender. He can guard Devin Bookers and players of that nature. Can Chucky Hepburn guard a Devin Booker right now? I don't know yet. We're going to have to see. So I don't really think so. I think he's, most point guards in the NBA, like a Tyus Jones kind of guy, he would shock you how well he would defend a player like that has one of the best assist to turnover ratios in the NBA. He'd give Tyus Jones a headache. Tyus Jones is a 6th man of the year candidate. He's one of the best assist to ratio guys. His brother Trey Jones isn't very good at all. But in my opinion. But yeah, I think Chucky should get into a summer league roster. I think he's got what it takes if he can just start knocking that 3 ball down consistently. He texted one of the coaches and he went to their practice facility and he shot like 591 threes and made like 503 of them or something like that. Or 623s and made 500. And he texted one of the assistant coaches and said, I haven't been following through on my jumper. That's been my issue. Won't happen again. So, and this was directly after the Clemson game. And
I was going to say, why would you stop at 591?
I don't know. That's what I thought. I guess he got tired, but you like to hear that. You like to hear, players working after a win. That's obviously a senior who's trying to go play at the next level. So he needs all the extra work he can get. But the fact that he's addressing that before another big game in Pitt, you love that out of Chucky. Chucky is a 10 out of 10 player for me.
I selfishly, I'm glad he's had these issues because if not, he wouldn't be in our lap right now. He'd have been in the NBA 2 years ago. And so, and to have him, it's weird because I don't know how the season's going to end. Really, I can be homer positive and give you reasons why I think this team can go deep and maybe a tournament run with the right combination and right matchups. Or I could be negative Nancy and tell you how this team is going to go in NIT. But I don't know how it's going to end. But I do know it's weird. I feel like regardless how the season's going to come to an end, this team at some point when it's all said and done is going to be like one of my favorite teams. And it's crazy to say. I've got so many great favorites. The 96 to 95 team was great to me because at my age and at the time. The 90 team, 89 team, I loved a lot. The 04 team, the 08 team. There's great teams that, for whatever reason, and whoever you are personally, individually, and have reasons why you're connected to them. And this team really should have no reason to because it's a first year under a first coach and a group of kids that all but maybe 2 of them won't even be back next year because of eligibility. Regardless, I somehow, I don't know why. This team, just because of the way Chucky plays, Terrence plays, Noah Waterman, God help him if he could just sit one more 3. I feel like I'm Kevin Costner in Field of Dreams. I'm like, just one more dialing quail and you're in the
last 2 games, he can't stay on the court. Last 2 games, he can't. He gets his 3rd foul too quick, and then he gets his 4th one too quick.
The fouls in the Clemson game were bullshit. They
were.
He's
playing too aggressive, but at the same time, I'm watching what Noah's doing. I'm watching what Noah's getting called for, and then I'm watching it in front of me. Like I'm watching what Noah's getting called for down on the other end, and then I'm watching Clemson do the same thing right in front of me. And they're not calling it. They weren't calling it. I don't understand. Right. I thought Mike said that the reffing was good. I thought there was they were consistent in a sense of what I thought the whistle was just a little bit more favorable to Clemson. It felt like a little. That's just my opinion. What do you think of this, Trev, right here? Do you see this?
I thought Sheffield / Joe Gadd Jr. over there walked more than it was called for. It would drive me nuts. I think that, Waterman, though, that's who he is. That's what he's going to be. That's what he has to bring to the table. Sometimes it's going to affect him aggressively defensively. But I can't complain. Since especially the Bahamas, he's been doing all that, the little things and the glue work along with Hadley as well that have just been we've needed desperately.
Do you see this texter or this is a comment from Zachary Schwager?
I'm not gonna go as far as say Louisville's as good as the 04 Pistons team.
What Louisville teams does this remind you of though defensively? What comes to mind if you have one? I know that's kind of putting you on the spot here, but
yeah, and you probably won't like it because it's not as one. It's not. I mean, there's still a long way to go, and I'm not going to put it with the top tier Patino defensive teams, but I would say kind of the team that lost to Murray State in the first round, maybe that 2000 was that 2012, I want to say, or 13. No,
not 13. We won the championship.
No, it's 2011. I want to say,
yeah. You're right.
I was working at Insight. I almost got fired because I got no long story during that game. Yeah, that team a little bit. I mean, because that team was also a team that was probably one of Patino's best coaching jobs in his tenure at Louisville in terms of the talent level and how much he got out of it, which is why it didn't really still shock me we lost to Murray State in that situation. But that was I could see it around that level compared to the 04 Pistons. I mean, Larry Brown in his prime. I mean, anybody who's ever met me, I am a big homer to Larry Brown. I don't get fan struck, but when I met him in Orlando about 10 years ago when he was coaching in Central Florida, I had to ask him for an autograph, even though he was eating barbecue at a restaurant by his hotel. I still got the picture. I couldn't. He's in that upper tier level of guys that I see, and I'm kind of like, oh, hey Larry, I'm a fan of yours. I don't do that often with anybody, but he's in that level. Very, very, very true.
That's cool. You got to meet him and do that. And I commend you for having the.
But the 04 Pistons, I mean, that you're talking about an 04 Piston. You're talking about still the only team in history of the NBA to, and this can be argued, but to win a championship without a real Hall of Famer on it, or even a real superstar on it. I mean, that team. Listen, Richard Hamilton was a good player. Phillips was, a solid player. Wallace, yada yada yada. There wasn't one true superstar on that team, not by comparison to any other NBA champion. And there sure as hell wasn't in my standards, a real Hall of Famer. I know NBA standards, the whole lineup made the Hall of Fame. They probably put Chris Dudley in the Hall of Fame for God's sakes. The NBA doesn't really have standards when it comes to Hall of Fame, but that's coaching job of that team, beating that Lakers team, man. Other than the fact that whoever Zachary is, fuck you, he didn't. That was a goaltend. I'll go to my grave to this day. I don't care. Do I know I'm wrong? Yes. Do I give a fuck? No. It was a goaltend to my dying day. I'll take that to my breath.
All right, Trevor. I wanna.
Okay, so we used to be able to watch TV at Insight. We'd take while we were doing orders, which probably explains why every time you call Insight, you never get anybody to answer the phone. And UofL and UK had to work that day. And if you remember, UK played right after UofL did that day. And and I just there was a UK fan next to me, obviously a Brewers fan as well, weirdly enough. And we got into an argument because I was young, hot-headed, not high enough at the time. And we had to have I threatened to hit him with a chair. He threatened to punch me. We got separated.
What happened after that?
I quit like 2 days later.
You had to just be the bigger man, remove yourself from the situation.
That I'm kind of pussy. I was like, I don't want to fight him. He probably whipped my ass. He's a big black dude. I mean, that guy rooted for the Brewers. He's braver than me.
Oh, jeez. Yeah. Well, that was probably smart. That's probably smart.
I'm a well-rounded fighter, and unfortunately, I can't do either one at the moment.
I feel that. Fighting isn't good. Communication is better.
Yeah, fighting sucks.
Trev.
Man. Yeah.
So talk to me before we transition to anything else. We're going into this Pitt game. Pitt's coming off a 47-76 loss, ass to belt pounding from
Duke covered, by the way. Thank you, Dookie.
They were spitting in their butt, Trev. Tell me, what do you think? What do you think about this Pitt team? It'll be a quad one opportunity still. It'll be two if they, if this isn't some reoccurring theme and they're actually not fraudulent or something. I don't think they are. I think they're very good.
Yeah, they're solid. I mean, they're not. Listen, everybody's behind Duke right now, even us. I mean, I'd love to get Duke at a different time. I thought the timing we played Duke was awful. I'm not saying we beat them, But the timing we played them with, right after that Ole Miss and that 3-game stretch, that it was just a bad timing for us, and I think it influenced in our loss. But either way, Pitt. I mean, it's gonna be. You got to go to the zoo. I mean, it's never an easy place to go win at in Pitt. Whether you're, remember Pitt had to just go to Cameron, where they weren't playing in Pitt. So I haven't watched them much. I only watched them in that Duke game, so that doesn't. I can't take so much from them, but I will say, I'm not scared of Pitt. I'm not. You shouldn't be scared of Pitt and play the way they played, especially defensively against Clemson and offensively against Virginia. Because you can't go into Pitt and have your 3 guys go 4 or 28 or whatever, and we're not going to win that game. It's not going to happen because Hadley, no, God love him, he's not going to go 10 for 12 and put up 30 again. That's just not going to happen. So, if we go in and our big three plays that way, then we're going to leave Pittsburgh with a loss. That's just a given. I don't know what the line's going to be, but you can't have all three. All three don't have to play great to win the game. And when I say all three, I'm talking Rain, Terrence, and Chucky. But you got to have 2 out of 3. You got to have
right.
2. And
you gotta have some 3 balls going in. You have to have the 3 balls going in. You
right.
need at least 7, 8, 9. 6 minimum. 6 is the absolute minimum, and that I don't think 6 threes is going to be enough to beat Pitt.
I trust Chucky's going to play defense. The defense will travel with the team, but hopefully, I'm hopefully with Scott being on the road, it's going to be a different atmosphere, even tougher than it was against Virginia. Hopefully, he will keep his head on a swivel and not go back to his bad ways, because that's going to happen as the season goes along. He's going to have a game where he's played early in the season, and we're going to be like, oh, wow, here we go again. It's going to happen. He's a sophomore. He's a kid. It's inevitably going to happen.
Yeah.
Hopefully, though, when it does, some of the other guys can help pick up the slack for him, like he helped, and him and Hadley helped pick up the slack in the Clemson game. You just got to have 2 out of. If any game Louisville goes in where there 2 out of 3 guys are going to step up, I feel confident that one of the other glue guys or role players or I feel like I'm Chris Farley in the SNL skit. I don't wear deodorant.
I don't know that.
I eat my own belly button fuzz. If you get 2 of those 3
I'll
guys,
have to search that on YouTube.
You can go ahead and do that. If you get 2 of those 3 guys in any game, Louisville, I believe, because the role players are going to get – not all of them are going to disappear. Louisville's going to beat anybody. Anybody they see outside of Duke. Duke, you got to have all 3 show up. Anybody else outside of Duke and the rest of the schedule, as long as 2 of those 3 big guys show up offensively, I feel there's no reason why Louisville can't win that game. I don't see, and I don't know how you can argue.
I think that's a wise take based on what we've seen that far. I don't think you're wrong at all, Trevor. I don't think you're wrong at all. All right, I want to stop here for the Louisville talk, just because I don't have a whole lot of time here. I got to get into the studio early and help a coworker out.
People with you jobs.
We're down to the last 4 teams in the college football playoff, Trevor. Tonight we've got Notre Dame and Penn State in the semifinal of the Capital One Orange Bowl. Who you got? Penn State or Notre Dame is a 1-point favorite. The total's at 44.5. The money line's even, so it's a pick 'em.
Now, Catholics versus Penn State. Hide your kids, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's a Notre Dame hater in me, and maybe it's the fact that I'm just not as anti-James Franklin for some reason as everyone else still is, despite the evidence that shows me I should be. I think Penn State rolls in this game. I don't
rolls.
Know. I think what's the line again? 4.5.
Notre Dame's a 1-point favorite.
Yeah, I'm taking Penn State. I think Penn State wins by 14 points.
Wow. Okay, Trevor. I
don't know. I can't still take. I don't know
after the way Notre Dame just performed in that against that Georgia defense. That Georgia defense doesn't have anybody notable key missing. Yeah, Carson Beck's missing from the offense, so you knew that the Notre Dame defense was going to be able to still do what it did, but that
they were missing one key point that was different from their previous teams, and that's called they were missing some more talent.
Yeah, you're right. That's true. But yeah, I like Penn State. I've had this weird feeling about Penn State ever since I saw the route Penn State potentially could have, and then now that the way things have gone, I've had this weird irking feeling about Penn State. and I'm sick to my stomach I didn't bet them because I said something about it in the group chat. I'm gonna have to see if I can get a date of when I said it and pull it back up. But yeah, I think Penn State wins this game. I think the Penn State run game and the Penn State offensive line, and then on top of that, the Penn State defensive line. It's just going to be a more all-around team that's going to be on the trenches are going to be a harder game for not harder than Georgia, but the Penn State offense is going to do something with their offensive line. While Georgia didn't do anything. Georgia let the Notre Dame rush them every single time it looked like, and they just let them through. The run game was all right, it seemed, but I just don't know if Notre Dame has enough with Riley Leonard right now in that offense to stop the Penn State defensive line. I just think that Penn State defensive line is aggressive and it's ready. I like Penn State in a close game, in a what I like to call haram ball. This is going to be a low scoring game. I think the total barely hits 44.5. I might take the under here. I'm going to stay away just because of how ugly I think this could get. I think this is going to be like a 18-22 victory, maybe.
Yeah. I don't do over-unders. I suck at over-unders. I stay away from them.
I like to try to mess with them a little bit, but
I have been
football can be hard.
I have had fun with player props though recently. In fact, I hit a 4 for 4 on the Alabama game last night, and with Papa on my card last night, won a nice little cool $200.
My big bets went 2-0 yesterday, and my Spears on sports pick of the day was we both give one, and mine was. I'm 1-1 in 2 days. I've done it, so I got to hit yesterday.
I would tell you this real quick. There's 3 Big Ten games today. I do like Michigan State with the 13.5. I like Oregon on the road getting 2.5, and I'm telling you to take Purdue giving 1.5. But for some reason, I don't know why, I don't want to touch it. I'm going to tell you to take it because I have to pick something. But I have this. There's a
if Dylan Harper is back and Ace Bailey's also playing. I've listened to enough Purdue games, and I'm going to be listening to them tonight on the clock. I've done enough. I've listened to enough and watched enough Purdue to know that they're outside of the kid they've got.
This
I
is
don't even know his name.
The
guard.
You're right. Rutgers has not been playing well. They looked like crap against Wisconsin. I rolled them on that game. I mean, Rutgers is a decent team. They're a 10 seed type level team. Maybe
Braden Smith's legit, but I don't trust anybody else on Purdue.
Yeah. The Purdue shouldn't win that game, but it's at the I guess they still call it the sack. I don't know if they call it that anymore.
Yeah. If Dylan Harper's back,
that game, but take Purdue on the points if you're going to bet it. I'm taking that 3-team parlay tonight.
Okay.
I do well again for those that want to know.
Yeah, I'm looking here. If I'm just seeing if there's, I've got a couple teams I've been kind of looking at this year. North Dakota State is only a 6.5-point favorite against a 4-10 Oral Roberts. I know that sounds weird. I've bet on a couple of North Dakota State teams. They're 11-6. They're not bad at all. I like North Dakota State to cover that 6.5 against Oral Roberts tonight.
Be careful now. Your daughter goes to Oral Roberts.
I know. It's all right. It's all right. Outside of that, I don't see anything else that I'm loving here. I don't.
No, there's only the Big Ten's the only major conference on display tonight.
Well, I'll still bet on I'll bet on some other shit.
Of course,
I like betting. I bet on every Norfolk State game. I will admit it. I bet on every Norfolk State basketball game. And San Francisco. I bet on every San Francisco basketball game too. I don't even know either team's mascot. I'm sorry. It's part of it. Okay, Trevor.
Can you tell me the number 2 seed in the tournament that Norfolk State upset when they were 15?
No, I can't.
I believe wasn't Michigan State? No, that wasn't them. Now I fucking draw a blank on it. Here's a tip, people. Don't ask a trivia question if you can't remember the answer. You're 100% yourself. I remember the team. It wasn't Hampton because Hampton beat Iowa State. God, see now so many 15s that fucking won.
Google it real fast, bro.
Back in the day, Google it for me real quick while I go on my rant of old madness. Like back in the day, I could name you all your 15s and even your 16s to a degree. Now there's been 2 16s, of course. But back it used to be, Santa Clara was the first 15 in '94 to beat a 2 seed when they beat Syracuse. You had, I mentioned Hampton. You had South Carolina State,
Missouri.
That's what it was.
They beat number 2 Missouri, 86-84.
I knew it was an overrated team.
2012.
It's been 14 years. They had a big center that looked like the fat kid from NC State last year. He tried to play in the NFL.
Burns, DJ Burns.
He was in that style of game at Norfolk State. They had a guy.
Oh, I see.
He was like 6'9", pudgy. I think he tried out for the Giants later on in his career. Their best player was a center that was agile like that. And he tried out for the NFL because at that time that was during your NFL to play tight ends because of Gates starting that trend back then. You saw he was one of them that tried to jump on it.
Yeah. DJ Burns seems to be playing overseas, it looks like.
No, not DJ.
I know. I'm just saying I looked his name up to see what he was doing. But that's cool that you know all those 15 seeds and 16 seeds and all those kind of situations. But Trev, we've got one more game Friday. I don't know if we'll talk again before Friday. So I want to ask you on your take for Ohio State playing Texas Friday in the. I'm sorry, I just let it slip there. In the Goodyear Cotton Bowl, I should have.
Yeah, I'll stop you right there. I'm Ohio State. I mean, it's
really -6. You're laying the -6.
Man. No, take Texas getting the points with Ohio State to win by 3.
I like that.
By the way, Kyle Quinn was the name of that player I was thinking of.
I think Ohio State wins this too. But I wouldn't be surprised if Texas defense pulls this off.
Texas is kind of like Notre Dame to me. Like I'm against them on every level because I still don't trust them.
Yeah,
and they have proven me wrong to this point. But now we're getting to where, as Charlie would say, the cream's about to rise to the top, and you're about to see the cream of a fifth grade boy. That's where we're kind of at right now, and we're seeing the blue.
I did not want to see Notre Dame in the national championship.
I mean, Notre Dame and Texas, the national title game. I mean, the ratings would be fine. I mean, I don't think the ratings are going to suffer regardless, but
I wanted to see something different, but there's a chance that's what it could be. So we'll just have to watch.
Ohio State and Notre Dame played since the infamous Eddie George game when
surely.
I mean, Eddie George. I got to meet Eddie George in his office in Tennessee. I was working for a company that did autograph session with him back in 2002, I think it was 2003. I got to go down to Nashville and meet him. He was doing an autograph for this company I was working with, and I got to go in his office at his restaurant. And his office was upstairs above his restaurant. I don't even know if the restaurant's still there in Nashville, to be honest with you. And behind his desk was this giant, wall mural. And it was him doing when he was running away, the great picture of him running away from Notre Dame defenders in that game. I know, again, this is before you were born, but it's the older people out there remember. The guy that remembers the 04 Pistons probably remembers.
Was that 06 you're talking about?
I met him with been like 02. I'm talking about 96, maybe 95 when they played the game. 95, I think.
Oh, okay. They played in 2023. Ohio State beat them. They played in 2022. Ohio State beat them. They played in 2016. Ohio State beat them. They played in 2006. Ohio State beat them.
Yeah.
In 36, Notre Dame beat them. In 35, Notre Dame beat them.
And 30, but they played. What did they play in the 90s? They played a game.
I'm not seeing that one for some reason.
They played. Eddie George ran all over them. It was Eddie George's, I think, sophomore year. But showing to get aged. How old I am on that one. I remember that. Just it was a portrait of him running away from the Notre Dame players, and it was just giant. Nora on his balls. It was pretty awesome looking. I don't know how I got to that rant, but yeah.
It's all good. Trevor, I gotta get out of here in the next couple of minutes, though. Unfortunately, I want to ask you just what you're feeling good about Louisville versus Pitt. Are you going to be? The line's probably there's 72.9% win probability on the ESPN app right now. I'm not getting a line on there. I'll go check. Yeah, you probably won't get a line. It's Thursday though. They should be giving me a line. I'm gonna go make sure there's not a line real fast.
If I had to guess the line, I would say Pitt probably -3.5, -4.5 maybe.
That'll probably end up being right.
You're gonna get 3 points for being at home, and I would say I could give them about a 1 point edge right now by resume alone. So I don't know what the Kim Palm and all that stuff is. That's Mike's guy.
I think I think Kim Palm's got them winning by like 5, 6.
So, that sounds about -4.5, -5, then maybe -6. That's the case. I would take Louisville the points, but I think if Louisville does fall in this game, it's going to be close. So if you're getting 5 or 6 points, take the Cards. But if it's like -2 or -3, I mean, I feel confident Louisville can win this game. I think Louisville should win this game. I just don't know if Louisville can win this game.
We're gonna have to see. I'm gonna have to do a little bit more looking on Pitt and watch some of the portions of their last couple of games and just see what's happening with them. I'm not gonna really give a gist. I think that based on what I saw in the box score against Pitt and based on what I saw in person against Clemson from Louisville, I mean against Duke from Pitt, and then what I saw against Clemson, and then Duke was getting whatever they wanted on them. They were getting, and I get that we don't have the same kind of level of athletes that Pitt has, and the offense doesn't flow the same way, but that's just a bright sign that they're coming off of such a bad loss like that. Now, granted, this is a bounce back spot for them because you're coming off that such a bad loss, and you've only lost 3 games. You don't want to get into winning or losing mode at all. But I'm kind of feeling confident just based on what the current form of the two teams seems to be. Trevor, thank you for joining me.
If I'm Pat Kelsey, one of the first things I want to do going into that game is obviously with Rain come off the bench. I'd want to try to get him going early in that game. More importantly, Edwards going offensively in that game because there's just offensive shot while it hasn't been there for the last game or two. He's going to get to the free throw line. He went to the free throw line 13 times I think in the last game, but he's held under a single-digit scoring the last 2 games as well. But we've won both games, so they're the positives and negatives. I think his offense will come with the free throw line. If I'm Pat, I want to get Terrence trying to get going offensively early in this game because he needs to get doing. He needs to get going offensively. He's really had some struggles, I think, getting a groove consistently offensively.
I agree. I'm right there with you. I agree 100%. Trev, thank you for joining me today. I'm gonna try to get us on at least once a week, no matter what. I'm gonna stop slacking and lacking. Twice a week would be cool. We're gonna do some things. Trevor, I think you're gonna try to get into do some side stuff on the channel. Maybe look out for that. Some side work with Trevor doing some maybe unsports related stuff, maybe his own sports related stuff.
I mean, but it'll behind me. I mean, do I need more light in here? I mean, what
no, I think you guys seem good. Comment below if you guys think Trevor's setup needs more light. Maybe we'll get you one of these ring lights. You might need a little ring light.
You really don't want to see my face that clearly. I promise you.
I think the shadow and the amount of the fact that you've got some light hitting you on the side. We know it's you, but you don't have too much. We don't have too much light hitting you. You don't have too many details being shown. I think you're all good. All right, Trev. If anything, any last final closing thoughts? Anything you want to let the listeners know before we head out of here?
Was kind of surprised to see Cardevius Hicks into the portal yesterday.
Monroe Mills as well. Monroe Mills is
a little bit hurt as well. First of all, I didn't know he had eligibility left. Kind of like Rager, but those two going. The portal, keep an eye on the portal as well. I mean, because we haven't really. I know we don't need running backs coming in, but I've been noticed that the lack of wide receivers. They've been going out the door, but haven't been coming in. And I'd like to see maybe Louisville's going to be bringing in somebody on that skill position in the next couple of weeks. It'd be nice to see.
Yeah, that would be very, very ideal. We would need that. All right, Trev, thank you so much. We'll be back on soon. This has been the Real Spill Live Show. Like, subscribe, share with your mom and dad and cousins and family and friends. And we'll be back soon.